And that's how you know you're doing something right.
100%.
Because they come back and they buy more property, or more importantly, they refer family and friends.
Correct.
And that's not an easy thing to do.
The joy and the satisfaction from talking to them that I'm getting is because we're actually helping them now finally, in the process of buying their dream home. Call it coincidence, call it whatever it was, but in the office, a bit of the banter was that I was sort of being, basically called, the relationship counsellor. I had 3 clients of ours that were all going through some really tough relationship challenges, and 2 subsequently separated. It was like, well, one party was giving me a call and telling me, and then I'd get the other party telling me, and don't say nothing to him, and he would be saying, oh, don't mention it to her and stuff. And I was almost like caught in the middle sometimes. Yeah. It's just like, part of the job?
Well, the good thing is now you had one client when they were together. Now you've got 2 clients.
Well,
when it comes to property investing, everybody talks about the numbers, the metrics, the vacancy rate, the capital growth, and the tax benefits, and so on. Today, I'm here with Raphael, Head of Strategy for Est, and there's another aspect of property investment that I don't know anyone else is talking about it, and that's the human aspect, right? Because when it comes to property investing, it's true that you need to have a look at all those metrics, don't you, Raph?
correct.
Look at all the vacancy rate, the capital growth, how much tax you're going to get, the depreciation, so many things. But I wanted to talk to you today because you're really heavily invested with all your clients, and I've seen that when we've gone out to see them. Today, I want to talk about the eyeballs behind the investment, the human aspect.
Yeah, and look, I think it's a really good point because we were talking about it just the other day in regards to, what we facilitate and what we achieve for clients, in regards to, savings of tax and boosting up retirement shortfalls and looking at investments that are ultimately going to help them pay down their mortgages faster and everything else. That's all important, and as a business, of course, where what we achieve for our clients and what we're judged by as well is the results of those investments and ongoing assisting clients with the cash flow and the management of those investments. But I think what's really important and what's touched upon for me, even as a father of 2 with my own family, is there is that human side to it. And in particular, I'm actually in the process now with some clients of mine that have been clients for the better part of 8-9 years now. The joy and the satisfaction from talking to them that I'm getting is because we're actually helping them now finally, in the process of buying their dream home.
Yeah, but it wasn't always that way.
No.
Welcome to Est. We're here to help you build real wealth through smart investing, through strategic tax planning and financial security. This channel is all about education and inspiration, real insights to help you maximize cash flow, reduce your taxes, and grow a profitable property portfolio. We cover real estate investing, wealth building strategies, and financial planning to create long-term security for you and your family. So if you're serious about building financial freedom, subscribe, like the video, and drop a comment below. And if you want a personalized guidance, just head over to our website for a free consultation or send us an email with the topics that you'd like us to cover for you. Let's go to work. Maybe talk about the sets of pains and financial pains and maybe personal pains that came to you. Because as people, what did they come to you and how were you able to help them overcome that on a personal level? And we'll talk about the investments later, but more as a mum and dad, or mother and father of certain kids.
Yeah, it was 2 young girls, and when I first met the 2 of them, they weren't in a great spot because they'd finally gone into a home, and speaking to the husband, it was almost like that was their only choice, in order to actually finally get a home after renting for a number of years, and they got onto the property that are in an area where they were okay with, but he genuinely wasn't really, happy and in love with the home. He was already mentioning it was quite small, and the land and the actual area itself. And it was funny because at the time we couldn't quite assist them on the grander plan of things, right? Because they were just restricted by earning capacities and the mortgage at the time. And they had, one or two other little personal things going on. And it was funny how the evolution of that, subsequently 18 months later, almost 2 years later, they recontacted me, and then we were able to engage.
So you did nothing with them the first meeting?
We assisted them purely from a consolidation and introduced one or two smarter ways in which they could actually start to function with their own finances, and limited at the time, right? And then ultimately we assisted them a couple of years later. There was a reconnection, and we were able to sort of get them on board with an investment, which lo and behold, 3 and a bit years later, was absolutely tremendous from a result. They sold that investment.
Capital growth.
The capital growth in that investment was, I would say, a couple of dollars short of about 340,000. Capital growth.
Not bad in 3 years.
Which was great. They used that money obviously then to reduce a significant amount of debt on their family home.
Right.
Fast forward, a couple of years later, and here we are right now. And it's funny because I was actually just going through some feasibility and some figures around their brand new home they're moving into.
This is their
dream home now.
Right.
Huge block,
Yep.
A huge, 5-bedroom home, and the swimming pool, and all those things that it's making me feel.
I was there with you when we went to their place, and because they did a video testimony.
Correct.
For us. And then after that, the joy on their face when they brought out the plans. And they started showing you the plans and where the pool is, and the kids gathered around, and this is my bedroom, and this is.
And a funny element to that as well is I guess, we were discussing just the other day just around what type of floor coverings, and he was asking me, in terms of my input, because we've got a good relationship and a good friendship now, and that part of it for me is real. Like if you take away everything, and we as a business obviously are assisting hundreds of clients, and everyone's got their own story, different circumstances and everything else. But that particular story for me is something that I don't think can be replicated again, because it's been 8-9 years of watching the two young girls grow up into, essentially teenage girls now. He still.
Didn't they buy a dog? Because
well, I was going to say he still gives me grief, and he's not happy with me because I actually went behind his back and showed one of the daughters and his wife a picture of our little puppy, and lo and behold, 7-8 months later.
That's the dog that wouldn't shut up when we were videoing.
Correct. So he's a little bit upset at me about that. We still joke about that, but it's funny just because just hearing it in his voice and the interaction we have and discussing things with him now, it's a beautiful part of what we do.
I know that drives you, because I've been out to see a few of your clients, and the connection that you've got with your clients because you take the human aspect into account. Sure, the property is important, don't get me wrong, and the metrics are very important. But to talk about, I've been with a few different clients about their personal situation, making fun of them, the fact that they're Penrith supporters, or you've got that connection that's beyond the property, which makes it for a long-lasting.
A big part of our business is the referrals,
and that's how you know you're doing something right.
100%.
Because they come back and they buy more property, or more importantly, they refer family and friends.
Correct.
And that's not an easy thing to do because any consequences goes back on them. That's how comfortable they feel.
And that was a big part of the meeting, I had with the team last Friday when we sat them in the boardroom and explaining to the team not only the marketing but the rest of the strategy team, telemarketers, and everyone else. Was, the reality is that what we actually do for these people and, the differences we make in their lives, right, it is real, right? And it is life-changing for these people, right? And in some instances, it can be just a mention of conversation at work to prompt one of their friends or colleagues or a family member to say, look, have a chat with the team at Est, give Raf a call. And it doesn't mean we can't help them. And not every single person that's actually given me a call that's been referred to me has gone on to become one of our clients, because for whatever reason, their circumstance at the time, or it was just something they just wanted to discuss, but then quite not ready yet, whatever the circumstances,
but the thing is,
right?
You never pushed them.
No, not at all, right? All it takes is, is a phone call sometimes. All it takes is even just sort of saying, you know what, have the courage to make that phone call yourself, right? Or listen to the phone call from one of our team if you've gone online and looked at some of our posts or inquired about how we can potentially help you.
Hold up, did things even go down? You've been paying your mortgage for years, doing exactly what they told you to do. You refinanced, you switched banks, you cut out takeaways, you skipped holidays, even swapped real coffee for cheap stuff that tastes like regret. And still, the debt barely moves. You open up your banking app and think, surely these numbers are wrong. Let's be clear. You did not fail. You didn't mess anything up. You got played because the system was never built to help you get ahead. It was built to keep you hooked. Every time you refinance to get ahead, all they did was they reset the loan clock back to 30 years.
No! God, please, no! No!
Again and again and again. You run harder, they collect interest. And your broker, well, they get a bonus. Your banker probably buys another yacht. And you get a letter saying congratulations on your new loan. Like that's supposed to be a good thing. I'm telling you, that's insulting. But here's the part they did not count on. That is you wising up. You see, there is a better way. And no, it's not another shiny scheme with a bow on top. It's not some secret suburb strategy. And it's not advice from a 23-year-old coach renting a convertible and selling you a dream. You know what we call it? We call it the 3-step financial needs analysis and framework. It's smart, it's legal, and it's built by people who actually work in the finance industry. And it's not just online, and it works. We've helped thousands of Aussies just like you to use it to take control, to get ahead and stop running in circles. We explain the whole thing for you in a short free video. There's no pitch, there's no fluff, there's no sales tactics, just a system laid out in plain and simple English. Click learn more to watch it now and do yourself a favor. Stop playing the game that was never made for you to win.
And it's funny how just listening, there is, a significant benefit down the track if you let yourself open to exploring some of those ideas. And it makes a massive difference.
I remember one particular client that we went out to see and were doing the video. And they finished the video and I was about to switch the camera off. And he looked at me and he says, I'd like to say something else. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And the guy had tears in his eyes. Do you remember what he said? Yeah. And he said, I forgot the words when it's on video. Something like, Raf came to us as a stranger. And then we started to trust him. Then he became a friend. And over these years, he's become family. And he had tears in his eyes. And that's the human aspect that most people don't talk about. Because at the end of the day, we might be dealing with real estate, but what are we really dealing with is people's lives.
Yeah, and I was actually having a conversation with my wife the other day because a client rang through on the car and she made a comment which is quite complimentary to me after the phone call. And I just explained, for a few minutes, the history behind that particular client. Now, this client is going through some tough times at the moment with the passing of his mother, and is obviously a bit of an issue, some challenges around the estate, and unfortunately, when there's money involved and things that need to be separated and passed down and everything else, there's obviously some squabbles within families and whatnot, right? But for a good 50 odd minutes the other day on the phone, I was just, discussing and I guess assisting somewhat in some different different ways to look at the current situation for the client, because sometimes with all the emotion and everything that he's been through the last couple of weeks, or the passing of mum and everything else.
Yeah, I was assuming that's had nothing to do with property. It's all about his personal.
Nothing to do. He's
just how he was handling things.
And even sort of hearing about his son and issues the son's having with the girlfriend, and then his sister, and all these things. It's almost like, well, I was thinking in the back of my head, tongue in cheek, well, I've got my own family and we've got our own challenges and everything else, but it's like, okay, well, I'm part of this family right now, and sort of needing to almost hear and bounce different ways to maybe look at things right now, because, we say to a lot of clients sometimes, when you're in that particular position, you haven't got that sort of helicopter view to maybe sort of say, well, hold on a second. Yeah. Think of it maybe this way, because there's a lot of anger or a lot of emotion potentially towards your decision making. Step back for 5 minutes, right? Yeah. And maybe think of the consequences of maybe doing it this way instead, and stuff like that. And he really appreciated it, where, I ended up getting a text, about 15 minutes later, thanking me, for listening and providing him with one or two different sort of insights into what he was thinking. Yeah. And it's funny, we spoke the other day again, and he's sort of changed his
trajectory.
Yeah, on what he's going to do right now. And I said to my wife, it's probably 70% of what he's actually moving towards now is essentially the way I saw things.
It's funny, what occurred to me as you were talking, you might be our strategist, but really you're a relationship builder. You build relationships with people. They call you. They ask if they should buy a dog.
No, look, there's been, there's always going to be the business part of the business. Yeah. And we need to, be mindful of that, because, we're obviously providing for, a large number of people that work within the organisation, and they've got their own families to feed and everything else. So there needs to be also the financial element to the business, right? And that's something that everybody understands. And I say very openly to clients, whenever you do anything in the world of finance, whether it's mortgage, tinkering, or whether it's changing your insurances, or whether it's moving from one fund to another in your super, or whether it's buying a property or selling a property, the reality is someone gets paid, right? Somewhere down the line, there's always going to be a transaction, right?
But there's a lot of companies out there, though, Raf, that do those transactions and get paid, but they're not, from my experience, as invested in the human aspect.
No, not
do you know what I mean? It's purely
Definitely.
a transactional. Do
Exactly.
they qualify? If they don't, no.
See you later.
See you later. If they do qualify, how much do they qualify for? And let's sell them that property.
That's it.
Whereas the thing that we're doing with Est, led by yourself, is that if someone doesn't qualify, and we've had a lot of clients that don't qualify, we still see them, we talk to them, we help them get their ducks in order. And a lot of them do come back to us a year, sometimes 2 years down the track. Do you remember me? Not really. I came to see you and you helped me, I'm ready to do something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, John, the big part of what we do is all that side of it, but the structuring and the investment strategies and all that, yes. But I was going through a period last year. It would have been a couple of months before Christmas. Call it coincidence, call it whatever it was, but in the office, a bit of the banter was that I was sort of being basically called the relationship counsellor, because for whatever reason, I had 3 clients of ours that were all going through some really tough relationship challenges, and 2 subsequently separated. But it was like, well, one party was giving me a call and telling me, and then I'd get the other party telling me, and don't say nothing to him, and he would be saying, oh, don't mention it to her and stuff. And I was almost like caught in the middle sometimes, and just hearing all this emotion, raw emotion, and I want this to happen now, and don't tell them about this. And it's just like, part of the job.
Well, the thing is, the good thing is now you had one client when they were together. Now you've got 2 clients.
Well, yeah, no, look, Look, I put myself also in that position, and I think it's important for them to be able to open up and feel that they can comfortably talk to me because of the journey that I'm proud to say that I start with them and take them on, because it could be very, very easy just to look at them as a statistical KPI and say, great, yep,
Next.
whatever, next. Almost just fill that little hole and move on. I don't sort of like to look at things that way.
Yeah. And the thing is, and this is why I wanted to talk about this, because for a lot of people it's probably boring, but to us it's exciting. And you're not the only one doing that. You know, everyone at S is doing the same thing, whether it be in the financial planning department, whether it be the home loans, whether it be our solicitors. Everybody does look at the human, the eyeballs behind the investment decisions. And I suppose that's why everyone gets on as a synergy in the office, because of that. We're all working for a common goal, is to serve the clients and to somehow enrich their lives, whether that be by offering them advice without investing with us, or when they do come on board, offering them advice to invest with us. It's a very nice feeling.
Yeah. Look, I think with anything, whether it's our industry, and there's, tons of companies out there that are, looking at trying to help clients and achieve, investment strategies and reductions and everything else, right? But I just think the most important thing, this is where the true human element comes in, with anything that you do. It's all about the experience.
It is. And it's funny you should say that, because, I do a lot of surfing on the net for other competitors, and I might put my name and contacts. And the first thing they do, Raf, is they ask you 3 questions, don't they? Are you under the age of 60?
Yep.
Do you have X amount of income, X amount of equity? And if I say no to any of those, they go, oh, thanks for your time, and they piss you off.
See you later.
And to us, it's a lot more than that, because if we can't help you today, if we foster the relationship, we will help you down the track.
But then the other side to that as well is, if we particularly can't help you today, or your circumstances are not quite right to be able to help yourself, there may be someone in your family, or a daughter of yours, for example, or son-in-law, or someone that that you care about, that needs the help.
Yeah, mate. Thanks for sharing the stories there, because, as I said, I love what we do.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to know that we're making a difference in people's lives. So, thank you, my friend.
No problem.
And, let's
see you
again.
around the traps.
That's a bit hard to do when you're sitting right next to me in the office. Thank you, guys.